The Weavers of Destiny, Fates Across World Mythology. Introduction. The Weavers of Destiny. Across time and civilizations, humanity has whispered of unseen hands that guide the thread of life. Every culture, from the mountains of Greece to the forests of Scandinavia, from the deserts of Egypt to the plains of Africa, has imagined them, beings who spin, measure, and cut the stories of mortals. They appear as sisters, spirits, gods, or forces beyond names. Some weave with looms of gold, others carve destinies into stone, or tie invisible strings between souls. They are the arbiters of birth and death, of fortune and ruin, of love and loss. And though their faces change, their purpose never does, to remind humankind that destiny is both gift and burden. In the ancient world, people prayed to them for mercy, cursed them for cruelty, and built temples in their honor. Even kings bowed before their unseen power. For in the eyes of the fates, all threads, rich or poor, holy or sinful, eventually lead to the same end. Tonight, we walk through the myths that bound humanity to destiny. We journey through cultures that sought to understand who controls the course of life itself. This is the story of the Weavers of Destiny, the eternal goddesses of fate who watched over humanity since the dawn of time. The Moirai of Greek mythology, weavers of life and death. In the heart of ancient Greece, beneath the flickering oil lamps of marble temples, poets and philosophers whispered of three women who held the lives of gods and men between their fingers. They were called the Moirai, the Fates, and their power was absolute. Clotho, Lachesis, Atropos. Their names carried the weight of every birth, every heartbeat, and every death. Clotho, the youngest, spun the thread of life from her distaff, drawing it from nothingness, a silken line that shimmered with potential. Lachesis, calm and deliberate, measured the length of that thread, deciding how long a mortal's story would last. And Atropos, the eldest and most feared, cut the thread with her shears, ending life in a single, merciless motion. Even Zeus, king of the gods, was said to bow to their will. For though he ruled Olympus, the Moirai ruled fate itself. In one tale, when the mortal hero Meleager was born, the Moirai appeared in his mother's chamber, unseen but unmistakable. They spoke in unison. He will live only until the brand burning in the hearth turns to ash. His mother, Althea, horrified, snatched the brand from the fire and hid it away, preserving her son's life for years. But when Meleager killed her brothers, vengeance overcame love. Althea threw the brand back into the fire, and as it burned, so did her son's final breath. The Greeks saw fate as a tapestry, every joy and tragedy woven together by the Moirai's patient hands. Mortals could struggle, love, and defy the gods, but in the end, their thread would follow the path the fates had chosen. And so, the Greeks did not pray to escape destiny, they prayed to understand it, because to them, fate was not cruelty, it was order, the balance that held chaos at bay. Every triumph and every sorrow began with a single thread. And somewhere, in the darkness beyond Olympus, three ancient sisters watched, their loom humming softly, their scissors gleaming in the firelight. The Norns of Norse mythology, timekeepers beneath Yggdrasil. Far to the north, where the winds cut through mountains like blades and the sky shimmered with the cold light of the aurora, fate was not spun from silk, it was carved into the roots of the world itself. Here, beneath the colossal branches of Yggdrasil, the world tree, lived three women who shaped the destiny of gods and men alike. They were the Norns, Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, and from their hands flowed the past, the present, and the future. They sat by the well of Urd, a sacred spring whose waters nourished Yggdrasil's roots. Every day the Norns drew water and white clay from the well, tending to the tree that held the 9 realms together. As they worked, they inscribed the fate of every being, not with threads, but with runes, symbols of power that defined all things. Urd, Urda, was the past, all that had been. Verdandi was the present, all that was becoming. Skuld was the future, all that was yet to come. Together they wove time itself. Even the gods of Asgard bowed to their will. Odin, the All-Father, sought their wisdom, desperate to glimpse the shape of destiny. But the Norns did not speak in straight lines. They answered in symbols, omens, and visions that blurred the boundary between what was and what would be. In one telling, Odin gazed into the well of Urd and saw his own death, a vision of fire and blood, of wolves devouring the sun, of the world ending at Ragnarok. Yet he did not resist it. The Norse did not see fate as something to be avoided, but as something to be faced with courage. Fate, to them, was the thread that bound all warriors to glory or doom. The Norns did not play favorites. Their runes fell where they must. A child's laughter, a king's fall, a god's last breath, all were etched into the roots of Yggdrasil long before they came to pass. And when mortals died, their names were whispered into the well's surface, rippling briefly before fading back into eternity. The Norns did not weep nor smile. They only worked, patient, eternal, and silent. For in the north, even the gods knew, no one escapes what is written in the roots of the world. The Parcae of Roman mythology, Rome's immutable sisters of fate. In the marble halls and shadowed temples of ancient Rome, the Fates wore new names, yet their power remained unchanged. They were the Parcae, the unyielding sisters of destiny, known as Nona, Decima, and Morta. Where the Greeks saw divine artistry in the loom of Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, the Romans saw something colder, a bureaucracy of the cosmos. To them, the Parcae were not just weavers of life, but record-keepers of inevitability, divine clerks inscribing each mortal's story onto the scrolls of time. Nona, the spinner, presided over birth. Her name derived from the 9th month of pregnancy, a sacred number marking life's beginning. Decima, the measurer, decided the thread's length, dictating the span of years allotted to each soul. And Morta, the cutter, delivered death with precise, impassive grace. Her shears never trembled, her timing never erred. Roman mothers whispered prayers to the Parcae as they gave birth, invoking Nona's mercy for a safe arrival. Soldiers before battle left offerings for Decima, hoping for an extra measure of time. And when plague or war swept through the streets, the Romans said Morta was walking, silent, cloaked, and busy. In the Aeneid, the poet Virgil describes how even Jupiter, king of gods, must bow before the decree of the Parcae. When he wishes to save a doomed hero, the fates remind him, the thread has been spun. Even gods could not cut or extend what the Parcae had measured. Their temple stood near the Forum, a place where births and deaths were recorded, mirroring their divine function. The Roman world revolved around order, discipline, and law, and so too did its understanding of fate, not as chaos, but as a divine schedule from which no one, not even emperors, could deviate. Unlike the poetic Moirai or the mystical Norns, the Parcae represented fate as duty, impartial, administrative, inevitable. They were not cruel nor kind, they were simply correct. In every Roman triumph, behind every wreath of laurel and roar of victory, there was always the whisper of mortars' shears, reminding even Caesar himself that all glory, all conquest, all empires must one day meet their measure. And when that moment came, the parquet would be waiting, calm, meticulous, and just on time. The Sudanitsi of Slavic mythology, the Slavic spirits who decree destiny. In the quiet wooden cottages of the ancient Slavs, where the air smelled of pine and hearth smoke, the people believed that destiny entered the world on the very night a child took their first breath. And it did, in the form of 3 ethereal women, known as the Sudanitsi. They came silently, gliding through the shadows just before dawn. Dressed in white robes, faces hidden beneath veils, they appeared beside the newborn's cradle and spoke words that no mortal could hear, the words that decided the child's fate. The first Sudanitsa spoke of birth and beginnings, blessing the infant with gifts of health or beauty. The second determined the path of life, fortune, hardship, love, or loneliness. And the third, the most solemn, decreed how and when the thread would end. Once spoken, their words could never be taken back. Even the most powerful magicians dared not challenge the decree of the Sudanitsi. To the Slavs, these spirits were both feared and revered. Families left offerings, bread, honey, milk, or coins on the table after a birth, hoping to please them. The room had to be spotless, the baby swaddled in the finest cloth, for disrespecting the Sudanitsi could mean inviting a cruel fate. In one tale, a young mother, proud and foolish, mocked the tradition, saying no spirits would dare rule over her child. That night, the Sudanitsi came as always, but when they saw no offerings and heard only arrogance, they spoke in cold tones. The first gave the child strength, the second gave him courage, but the third gave him a short life filled with battle and blood. And so it was. These fate spirits had many names across the Slavic lands: Sudis in Czech, Sudički in Slovak, Rožanis in the Balkans, and Rodzanis in Poland. But all shared the same essence. They were the unseen judges of every mortal's journey. Even kings could not defy them. In folklore, a wise ruler once tried to outwit the Sudanitsi by locking his newborn son in a tower, far from danger. But the child tripped one day on a spindle left by a servant and fell to his death. No walls, no wealth, no will could break their prophecy. To the Slavs, destiny was not punishment. It was a truth woven before birth, binding all things together. The Sudanitsi were not monsters. They were simply the keepers of that truth. And so, for generations, every cradle was a sacred altar, every sleeping child a whispered prayer, that when the Sudanitsi came, their voices would be kind. Laima and her sisters of Baltic mythology, Baltic weavers of fortune. In the mist-covered forests of ancient Latvia and Lithuania, where birch trees whispered secrets to the wind, people spoke of a goddess whose touch shaped every heartbeat and every breath. Laima, the bringer of luck, fortune, and fate. She was more than a goddess of destiny. She was its embodiment. At a child's birth, it was Laima who stood unseen beside the mother, murmuring the newborn's future as the fire crackled. The moment she spoke, a person's path, their joys, trials, and death became fixed in the world. But Laima was not alone. In some tales, she was joined by her sisters Dahlia and Karta, who helped her divide and balance the blessings and burdens of each life. Together, they formed a triad, echoing the eternal pattern of the fates across cultures: one who weaves, one who measures, and one who decides. Yet, unlike the Greek Moirai or the Roman Parcae, the Baltic fates were not cold or detached. Laima wept for those she doomed and rejoiced for those she blessed. She was emotional, conflicted, human in her divine sorrow. In one of the oldest Lithuanian songs, a girl prays to Laima on the eve of her wedding. "Laima, dear Laima, be kind to my path. If tears must fall, let them be tears of joy." Laima's decisions could not be undone, not even by Dievas, the sky god, but she could be persuaded. Through song, ritual, and offering, mortals sought her mercy. A golden coin tossed into a stream, a loaf of bread baked with honey, a whispered prayer at dawn, all small attempts to soften the heart of fate itself. Laima also watched over childbirth and love. In some tales, she tied invisible threads between destined lovers, a striking parallel to the Chinese Yue Lao, who would later bind souls with red cords. And when death came, Laima was said to stand quietly beside the dying, not as a reaper, but as a witness. She had been there at the beginning, and so she must be there at the end. To the Baltic people, life was not ruled by wrathful gods or blind chance. It was shaped by the tender, sometimes unpredictable moods of the weeping goddess who cared too much. Laima was fate, yes, but she was also love, compassion, and the ache of knowing that destiny spares no one, not even the heart that shapes it. The 7 Hathors of Egyptian mythology, Egypt's prophets of birth and death. In the golden lands of ancient Egypt, where the Nile shimmered beneath the desert sun and life itself was measured by the flood, destiny was spoken not by 3, but by 7. They were the 7 Hathors, divine sisters and prophetic spirits, each a reflection of the great goddess Hathor, lady of love, music, and the afterlife. Wherever a child was born, the 7 Hathors would appear, unseen but ever present, to pronounce that child's fate. Each Hathor bore a name and a secret purpose, and though their faces were identical, their words were not. Some whispered blessings, long life, beauty, and wisdom. Others foretold sorrow, betrayal, or an early death. And once they spoke, their prophecy could never be revoked. The Egyptians called them by sacred titles: she of Thebes, she of Heliopolis, she of Sin, she of Chemis, she of Heracleopolis, she of Keset, and the Lady of the West. Each represented a region, a temple, and a spiritual domain, as though fate itself flowed through every corner of Egypt, from the delta to the desert. In one myth, the 7 Hathors appeared at the birth of Prince Bata, a hero of Egyptian legend. They foretold that he would die by a crocodile, a snake, or a dog. No matter how he tried to escape his fate, one of these would be his end. He fled from beasts, lived in isolation, and even rose to become a king. But in the end, one of the prophesied creatures found him, just as the Hathors had said. The message was clear. Destiny, once spoken, would always find its way. The Egyptians, however, did not see this as cruelty. To them, fate was simply Maat, the cosmic order that governed all things. The Hathors were not villains, but voices of truth. They sang what must be, and in doing so, kept the balance of the world intact. Priests and midwives often invoked the 7 Hathors at births, offering milk, honey, and small figurines of cows, Hathor's sacred animal, to seek a gentle prophecy. Some even hung amulets inscribed with the phrase, "May the Hathors speak well of you," because though they were many, their voices were one, and their word was eternal. In a civilization obsessed with eternity, the seven Hathors embodied the Egyptians' deepest truth, that even the mightiest pharaoh, even the builders of pyramids, walked a path already written in the stars. And when that path ended, it was the Hathors, radiant and unblinking, who guided the soul to its next beginning. The Morrigan of Celtic mythology, the battle fate of the Celts. On the mist-covered hills of ancient Ireland, where warriors painted their faces and kings ruled by the sword, fate did not come in the form of gentle spinners or kind prophets. It came as a crow. To the Celts, destiny was not something woven. It was something fought, and no figure embodied this truth more than the Morrigan, the phantom queen of war, death, and prophecy. The Morrigan was not a single goddess, but a trinity of terrifying power. Badby, the crow of battle who feasted on corpses; Macha, the bringer of sovereignty and bloodshed; and Nemain, the spirit of chaos and frenzy. Together they were one, a shifting, eternal force that decided who lived, who died, and whose name would be remembered in song. She haunted the edges of every battlefield, appearing as a young woman, a hag, or a raven perched upon a spear. Warriors who saw her washing blood-stained armor in a river before battle knew the armor's owner was already dead. They just hadn't fallen yet. In Celtic myth, fate and battle were one and the same. The Morrigan did not sit by a loom or measure life with thread. She wrote fate with war cries and carved destiny in blood. Her prophecies were not soft whispers. They were screams carried on the wind. One of her most famous encounters was with Cu Chulainn, Ireland's greatest hero. Before his final battle, she appeared to him in disguise, offering her love and protection. But Cu Chulainn, proud and unyielding, rejected her. Enraged, the Morrigan swore he would pay for his arrogance. On the battlefield, she returned, not as a woman, but as three creatures meant to destroy him: an eel to trip him, a wolf to drive cattle against him, and a heifer to crush him. Each time, Cu Chulainn wounded her, not realizing who she truly was. Later, as he rested and saw her once more, she offered him milk, a gesture of peace, but he cursed her instead. And so, when he met his fate, impaled against his own spear, bound upright to die on his feet, it was the Morrigan, in the form of a crow, who landed silently upon his shoulder. She had not killed him directly. She had only watched, patient and certain, as destiny fulfilled her prophecy. The Celts feared her, but they also revered her. To them, the Morrigan was not evil. She was truth. She revealed what men refused to see, that no sword, no spell, and no king could escape the call of fate. After every war, the Morrigan would rise from the battlefield mist, blood on her hands and prophecy on her tongue. Her final words were always the same, a chilling reminder that peace itself was only an illusion before the next storm. She was not the weaver of fate. She was its voice, screaming across Ireland's blood-soaked fields. All things end, all kings fall, and all destinies, in time, come to me. Ori and Orunmila of Yoruba mythology, the Yoruba secret of chosen destiny. In the heart of West Africa, long before the first word was written or the first crown forged, the Yoruba people told a story unlike any other. A story where destiny wasn't merely handed down by unseen gods, but chosen by each soul before birth. Here, fate was not punishment or reward, it was agreement. Before a soul descended from the heavens into the world of the living, it journeyed to the realm of Agila, the divine potter. Agila crafted countless heads, or Ori, spiritual essences that would guide a person's life. Each Ori was different, some noble and wise, others impulsive, flawed, or ill-fated. And there, in the shimmering light of Orun, the celestial realm, every soul was asked to choose its Ori. Once the choice was made, it could never be changed. The chosen Ori became the soul's inner divinity, its guardian, and its judge. In Yoruba thought, Ori is greater than the gods themselves, for even the mightiest deity cannot change what a person's own head has chosen. But the Yoruba also knew that choice was not made blindly. Standing beside each soul during this sacred moment was Orunmila, the wise and ancient Orisha of wisdom, divination, and destiny. Orunmila, known as the witness to all fate, was there when the world was formed and every destiny written. It is said that he alone remembers what each soul chose before birth, the promises made, the mistakes accepted, and the trials agreed upon. When humans forget their divine purpose, it is to Orunmila they must turn through the sacred art of Ifa divination. The Babalawos, priests trained in this art, cast sacred palm nuts and read from verses known as Odu, revealing glimpses of the destiny once chosen long ago. But here lies the Yoruba paradox. Though one's Ori cannot be changed, it can be appeased. Through offerings, prayer, and good character, Iwa Pele, a person can align themselves more closely with their chosen destiny. The Yoruba call this Se Ori Rere, to make the head good. And so, destiny in Yoruba, belief is both fixed and flexible, a divine contract, yet open to harmony through wisdom. Unlike the Greek Moirai, who cut the thread of life, or the Norse Norns who weave beneath the tree of Yggdrasil, the Yoruba see fate as a sacred partnership. You chose your path, and the gods help you walk it. The wise say, Ori lababo, aki ibo orisa. It is the Ori we must worship, not the gods. For the gods may grant power and fortune, but only your Ori, the destiny you chose before birth, decides whether you will ever truly find peace. And when life ends, the soul returns to Orun, standing once more before Orunmila, who asks the question that echoes through eternity. Did you walk the path your Ori chose for you? Shichi Fukujin and the hidden threads of luck of Japanese mythology, the Japanese fate gods. In Japan, fate is not a cold decree carved in stone, nor a prophecy whispered by unseen weavers. It is a current, shifting, unpredictable, and sometimes kind. And for those who seek to sail its waves, 7 divine guides ride alongside them, laughing, feasting, and bestowing fortune upon the worthy and the foolish alike. They are the Shichi Fukujin, the 7 gods of good fortune. Unlike the grim fates of other worlds, these deities embody the softer, human side of destiny, luck, wealth, wisdom, and happiness. Yet behind their joyful masks lies a deeper truth. Even fortune is a form of fate. Each god came from different lands, absorbed into Japan's tapestry of Shinto and Buddhist beliefs over centuries, forming a celestial crew that sails across time in their takarabuna, the treasure ship. And when they come ashore at the start of every new year, those who welcome them with purity of heart are said to be blessed for the months ahead. Ebisu, the only one of purely Japanese origin, is the smiling fisherman. His laughter fills markets and harbors, and he teaches that hard work, patience, and cheerfulness can summon good fortune from the sea or from life itself. Daikokuten, the god of wealth and the harvest, is always found standing on bales of rice, holding a golden mallet. Each strike of his hammer releases abundance, but his wealth is not greed. It is the reward of generosity and gratitude. Bishamonten, the armored guardian, watches over warriors and travelers. He reminds humankind that luck often follows courage, and that protection itself is a form of blessing. Benzaiten, the goddess of art, music, and eloquence, brings the melody of inspiration. Her origins trace back to the Hindu goddess Saraswati, and she governs the kind of fate that turns a simple word, song, or idea into something eternal. Fukurokuju, the sage with a high, elongated forehead, personifies wisdom and longevity. His scroll is said to contain the lifespan of every living creature, echoing the ancient belief that destiny is written yet earned. Jurojin, another god of long life, walks beside him, cheerful, wine-loving, and accompanied by a deer symbolizing vitality and patience. Together, they show that to live long is not to escape fate, but to savor it. And finally, Hote, the laughing monk. His great belly shakes with joy, his bag never empties, and his smile never fades. He is contentment itself, the understanding that happiness is not given by fate, but found within it. In Japanese belief, fate, unmei, is not punishment or reward. It is balance. The Shichi-Fukujin do not spin destinies or dictate deaths. Instead, they tilt the scales, granting glimpses of joy or fortune to those who live with sincerity, humility, and harmony. During the New Year, children draw pictures of the 7 gods sailing their treasure ship and place them under their pillows, hoping to dream of good luck. For if one dreams of the 7 lucky gods, their year is said to unfold in peace and prosperity. But if the gods do not appear, it is not misfortune, only a reminder that destiny is still being written, quietly, by one's own hands. Because in Japan, luck and fate are not separate. They are 2 sides of the same coin. The Shichi-Fukujin may smile and grant favor, but it is the soul's choices, moment by moment, that decide whether the gods' gifts will bloom or fade. White Buffalo Woman of Lakota mythology. Weaver of the sacred path. Across the endless plains of North America, where the wind hums through the grass and the sky stretches wider than memory, the Lakota people tell of a spirit who did not simply reveal fate. She taught humanity how to walk in harmony with it. Her name is Pitasanwi, the White Buffalo Woman. To the Lakota, she is not a goddess of war or death, but of balance, spiritual order, and sacred destiny, the bridge between the people and the great mystery, Wakantanka. The legend begins in a time of hunger and discord. 2 Lakota hunters, searching for game across a barren plain, saw a figure in the distance. As she approached, they saw she was not human, but divine, dressed in pure white buckskin, carrying a sacred bundle, her presence radiant like sunlight on snow. One hunter was overcome by desire and approached her with impure intent. In an instant, a white cloud enveloped him, and when it cleared, only his bones remained. The other hunter fell to his knees in reverence. The woman smiled upon him and said, "Return to your people. Tell them to prepare for my coming." When she arrived at the Lakota camp, the people gathered in awe. She laid before them the sacred bundle, the chanunpa, or sacred pipe, and taught them the 7 sacred rites, ceremonies that would guide their relationship with the land, the spirits, and each other. Through her teachings, the Lakota came to understand that fate was not something inflicted upon humanity, but something woven through right living. Every prayer, every act of kindness, every injustice, All of it shaped one's sacred path, the Wochekia, or connection to the Great Spirit. The white buffalo woman spoke of 4 ages to come, times when the world would fall out of balance. She promised that one day she would return as a white buffalo calf to remind the people of the old ways and restore harmony between humankind and the earth. When she departed, she walked a short distance, then sat down. As the people watched, she transformed, first into a black buffalo, then red, then yellow, and finally white, before vanishing into the horizon. Each color represented a direction, an element, a people, and together they symbolized the unity of all creation. From that day, the Lakota carried her words in their hearts that destiny is not to be feared, but to be honored, that one's life is a ceremony, and that the threads of fate are held not by distant gods, but by the choices we make in every breath we take. To this day, the birth of a white buffalo calf is seen as her sign, a reminder that fate is sacred, that balance can be restored, and that humanity's story is still being written beneath the vast and watchful sky. Saiming and Yue Lao of Chinese mythology, the Chinese keepers of life and love's threads. In the great expanse of the Chinese heavens, where jade palaces float among the clouds and celestial scrolls record the lives of mortals, fate is not merely a force, it is a bureaucracy. Here, destiny is written, stamped, and sealed in divine ledgers, overseen by gods who govern every joy and sorrow with the precision of cosmic administrators. 2 of the most revered among them are Saiming, the arbiter of life and death, and Yue Lao, the old man under the moon, the keeper of love's invisible threads. Together, they hold dominion over the 2 forces that define the human story, life and connection. Saiming, whose name means controller of destiny, dwells in the upper heavens, surrounded by scrolls that contain the life records of every living being. He is depicted as a calm, scholarly deity dressed in flowing robes, holding a brush dipped in celestial ink. Each morning, Saiming opens the book of life and writes the fates of mortals, births, fortunes, illnesses, and deaths. It is said that even the Jade Emperor himself respects his entries, for what Saiming writes cannot be undone. In ancient times, people prayed to Saiming to extend their lifespans or reverse misfortune. Offerings of incense and rice were made in his honor, often during festivals celebrating longevity. Yet, for all his authority, Saiming is not cruel. His hand moves according to a greater balance, the Tao, ensuring that each life fulfills its destined pattern. He is not the bringer of fate's weight, but its scribe, and his pen writes with impartial grace. But if Saiming governs the span of life, Yue Lao governs the threads that bind those lives together. Known as the Old Man Under the Moon, Yue Lao is a gentle, smiling figure who wanders the night skies with a book of marriages and a red cord in hand. It is said that when 2 souls are destined to meet, Yue Lao ties them together with an invisible red thread, binding them across time, distance, and circumstance. The thread may tangle, stretch, or fray, but it never breaks. Legends tell that even emperors and sages bow to the will of Yue Lao's cord. One famous tale tells of a young man who, curious about his future wife, encountered Yue Lao reading beneath the moonlight. The old god showed him a little girl nearby and declared she would one day be his wife. Outraged, the man ordered a servant to harm the girl to avoid such a fate. Years later, he married a noblewoman, only to discover a faint scar on her eyebrow, where the servant's blow had struck long ago. No one escapes Yue Lao's thread. Together, Siming and Yue Lao form two halves of China's cosmic order. Siming records how long a life will last. Yue Lao determines who that life will intertwine with. Their realms intersect quietly, the ink of Siming's brush touching the red silk of Yue Lao's cord, a reminder that existence is not a solitary thread, but a tapestry of destinies woven by unseen hands in heaven's vast bureaucracy. Through them, the Chinese saw fate not as cruelty, but as structure. Every birth, every meeting, every loss, all are written, bound, and balanced within the great cosmic register. And beneath the moon, where Yue Lao still ties his threads, lovers whisper prayers, not to change fate, but to find it. Because in the Chinese heavens, destiny is not random. It is recorded, reviewed, and lovingly tied, one red thread at a time. The eternal thread, what fate means, across humanity. From the spinning looms of Greece to the shadowed battlefields of Ireland, from the sacred rivers of Africa to the moonlit heavens of China, the faces of fate have changed, but their message has not. Every culture, in its own language, has whispered the same truth. We are all threads, woven, tied, measured, or chosen, but never entirely our own. The Greeks saw the fates as three sisters, impartial and cold, weaving every life from birth to death. The Norse believed destiny dripped from the roots of Yggdrasil, spun by the Norns who carved runes even the gods could not erase. The Celts heard it cry across the battlefield in the voice of the Morrigan, while the Egyptians saw it written by the seven Hathors, their prophecies echoing through the tombs of kings. The Yoruba told of Ori, the inner head that chooses its path before descending into the world, guided by the wisdom of Orunmila. The Japanese transformed fate into joy and balance through the Shichi Fukujin, gods of good fortune who remind mortals that destiny is not only weight, but wonder. The Lakota understood fate as harmony, a sacred path taught by the white buffalo woman, who showed that destiny is a living covenant between humanity and the earth. And in the vast Chinese heavens, Siming and Yue Lao record and bind all lives, one in the ink of time, the other with the red thread of love. Across all these stories, fate is never just a sentence passed from above. It is relationship between divine and mortal, choice and consequence, love and loss. It is both freedom and boundary, chaos and order, a reminder that every life is a story co-authored with the universe itself. Some cultures feared fate, others revered it, yet none could escape it. Because to speak of fate is to speak of what it means to be human, fragile, yearning, and endlessly curious about what lies ahead. Perhaps that is why these myths endure, because in them we see ourselves, trying to bargain with the inevitable, to understand the unseen pattern that connects us all. And somewhere beyond the stars, maybe the Moirai still weave, the Norns still carve, the Hathors still whisper, Orunmila still records, the Morrigan still watches, Yue Lao still ties his threads beneath the moon. Different hands, different symbols, one eternal truth, that no matter the name, the culture, or the age, the loom never stops turning. And within it, our stories, fragile and brilliant, continue to intertwine, thread by thread, until time itself runs out.